Hi friends, Namaste. Welcome to the NPTEL course Strategy and Technology, a Practical Primer. Before we go into the course, let me say a few words about myself. My name is C. Bhaktavatsal Rao. You can call me CB Rao. I have received my PhD and MTech degrees in Industrial Management and Industrial Engineering respectively from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, Chennai. I received my BE degree in Mechanical Engineering from Sri Venkateswara University, Tirupati. I have over 47 years of experience heading large corporations and functions over the 47 years. My last full-time assignment was as Managing Director and Executive Chairman of Hospira Healthcare India Private Limited, a Pfizer company. I have been passionate about writing and publishing as well as teaching. I have several publications in reputed forums. I head Leadercrest Academy, a startup established by me for high quality academic publishing. I have offered 2 courses over the last few semesters on NPTEL Swayam platform. One was on entrepreneurship and the other was on Leadership for India Inc. I am very happy to share with you that these courses have been very well received, and I do hope that this course will also be found equally useful by you. Strategy and technology are taught in a significant detail at IIT Madras. It is my pleasure and privilege to share with you some of the best aspects of strategy and technology as taught at IITs and also adapted by me for this forum. Strategy envisages, plans and executes for a desirable future, whereas technology is the core of whatever we see of progress from the time science and technology started taking root. Technology-savvy strategy or technology-integrated strategy is therefore the very essence of progress. We have seen technology and strategy operating essentially in terms of product features or service features, quality of products and services, as well as cost competitiveness. However, there is more to strategy and technology. There is safety, there is health, there is sustainability, which could be driven by this unique combination. But more recently, we are also aware that environment, social, governance factors, that is the ESG factors, have acquired dominance in corporate management. This course on strategy and technology is a unique integration of the domains of strategy on one hand and technology on the other hand. I offer several theories and models of developing strategy and deploying technology as part of this course. We have several practical examples and case studies with which we can connect these concepts. And this course teaches strategic skills, that is how to develop strategy, how to formulate a strategic plan, how to execute a strategy, and that would be integrated with technology insights. So there would be building blocks of strategy that would be outlined as part of this course. I would be highlighting the drivers of technology and also indicate how technology can be strategically deployed in a firm's growth path. As a result of this kind of approach, we will get enterprise growth, economic prosperity, and professional fulfillment. This is a 12-week course. We have 60 lectures, 5 lectures per week with weekend assignments. Each week will focus on one core theme and each lecture will cover 2 specific topics. I'll be providing, as I said, several practical case studies and examples to illustrate the concepts that would be covered by me. I'll also wrap up with several case studies of technological innovation and enterprise growth. I'm also happy to share at this point of time that this course is really data and information rich. I have developed about 1200 data and information rich slides. Some of them are original and some of them adapted from textbooks and reference journals. Together, this course of this 1200 data and information content slides presents global as well as local perspectives of strategic and technological development. I have used, of course, certain images from the public domain, and these images have been used purely to enhance visual appeal and also for educational purposes in an exclusive manner for this particular program. The copyrights of all these images stay with the people who have provided those images. In terms of course structure, these 12 weeks are in terms of 12 specific themes. In week 1, we will cover structural and strategic analysis. And as part of this week, I will be covering several techniques and tools of strategic planning. In the second week, we will talk about strategy formulation. That is, the way in which a firm can develop a strategic plan. And again, there will be several frameworks, tools, and constructs which can be deployed by chief strategy officers, their teams, to develop these strategic plans. Week 3 is extremely important because while we develop a strategic insight and while we develop a strategic plan, it is extremely important that we learn how to execute this strategy optimally. Therefore, the factors that influence strategic execution are discussed in week 3. Week 4 focuses on competitive strategy. I draw here upon Porter's competitive strategy framework, which talks about the 5 forces, but I also bring the new original concept of 5 economic forces, and I focus on financial liquidity as one of the all-embracing economic force. Then we will talk about buyers, suppliers, and competitors, that is the broader ecosystem within which a firm operates, in week 5. And there would be several analytical frameworks relating to these entities that would be covered in this week. Week 6 we will focus on structural analysis and competitive strategy. That is, we will try to link the structure of the industry, that is the exit barriers, the entry barriers, the mobility barriers, the scale and scope of the industry, and the analytical frameworks related to the industry analysis, to the development of competitive strategy by individual firms. In week 7, we explore a novel concept which is called dynamic strategy equilibrium. What it means is that every firm has more or less similar inputs, and every firm has more or less similar aspirations of growth, of profitability. So given that information is a perfect market these days, how can firms achieve a superiority? So a firm which is narrowly focused would try to be broad-based, whereas a firm which is broad-based would either like to be more broad-based or seek some specialization so that it is more competitive. So this process finally results in a strategy equilibrium, but at the same time it won't stay in one place. It's a dynamic equilibrium. This concept of dynamic strategy equilibrium will be discussed in week 7. Week 8 onwards, we will focus more specifically on the technology and its ramifications in strategy. Week 8 will focus on technology and competitive strategy, while week 9 will focus on how technology can drive strategies of companies. The importance of technology in fulfilling customer requirements and also developing insights onto the future evolution of the marketplace are covered in week 10. Week 11 will focus on technology and business, talking about how technical perfection, technical sophistication, and technical adaptability can help businesses become more competitive and more growth-oriented. As I said, there would be case studies at the end of this course, and these technology case studies will be found very useful by you. In fact, several of the other lectures also would have case studies, which would be at the end of the theoretical constructs and practical analytical frameworks that I would be delineating. So with these few words, I would like to go to the unique features of this course. There are 4 unique features of this course. One, it is a course of strategy but with technology edge. Second, it aligns with the technological and strategic orientation of pedagogy at the IITs and the IIMs, as well as it reflects the IISc's lead in this area. 4 unique features can be talked of in this course. 1, it provides a detailed and integrated overview of the multifaceted domain of strategy and technology. Second, it helps the learners develop vision, mission, and goals, and also helps them craft a strategic plan that can accomplish the goals through execution of the strategic plan. That's very important, execution of the strategic plan. It presents multiple frameworks for enabling enterprise competitiveness, growth, and sustainability. As we can appreciate, no enterprise is exactly similar or same as the other one. Therefore, we need different frameworks that can describe different environments and different industry situations. As a result of the comprehensive and in-depth nature of this course, students and working professionals who hopefully are participants to this course would have a broad spectrum of capabilities that are developed in them. They would be able to hone their strategic skills, and they would be able to integrate multiple strategy and technology insights. Upon completion of the course, I am very hopeful that the participants will be able to develop critical strategic skills, that is, how to envisage a vision and mission for the company, how to develop a strategic plan, and how to execute. They would be tech savvy. It is not necessary that every strategist is a technologist, nor is it necessary that every technologist should know strategy. However, a strategist should have certain savviness about technology. Similarly, a technologist must understand the role of technology in priming the strategy of a company. This synergy of these two domains will be provided to you and will be absorbed by you. I would also imagine that the participants would become future ready because they would be able to integrate two futuristic disciplines in their thinking process, the strategy and technology. And given our emphasis, which would be found in certain parts of these course materials on sustainability and ESG aspects, there would also be the much needed focus on sustainability through these two dimensions. I would also imagine that the participants would be holistic working professionals. They would be able to evolve with an overall thinking about how industry develops, how firms can plan their strategies. They would be able to manage modernity. They will be able to manage transformation, deploying strategy as well as technology in their working lives. So with this, I come to the real core of today's lecture, which is external analysis. I have started my journey from the 1970s in reputed companies, primarily working in the area of strategy. So as I look back from the 1970s, I could delineate four phases of strategic management. That is, anything related to strategy or future, if we call it strategic management, there have been four phases over these several decades. And importantly, strategic management is relevant for all firms. It could be mono-product firm, it could be multi-product firm, it could be a single business firm, or it could be multi-business firm. For all these types of companies, strategic management is essential because strategic management takes a company forward into the realm of future. For the first phase, maybe in the 1960s and 70s, was a phase of annual planning. Everyone wanted to have a budget, a reasonable plan by which a company can deploy its resources and measure its performance. This was a phase of annual planning. Then came the phase of forecast planning, because an annual plan is limited in its time horizon and also in its scope. The focus shifted in the era of forecast planning, which is primarily in the 70s and 80s, to 5-year plans. And these plans were based on forecasting of future. There were internal projections related to likely competencies and capabilities in the company, and there were forecasts on how the environment would evolve and provide opportunities and threats. Then came the era of strategic planning, because there were conflicts within the departments and there were compelling pressures of different departments on getting resources and being seen as the drivers of growth. The entire forecast planning was getting skewed. So the concept of strategic planning came into vogue in the 80s and 90s, whereby strategy departments got established in companies, and the strategy departments were expected to be futuristic as well as equitable in deploying resources, assessing performance, and taking the company on the growth path. We are now in the era of strategic management, where the top leadership of the company, by this I mean the chief executive officer and several chief functional officers who together constitute this senior leadership team of the company, they assume the responsibility for inclusive strategic planning and execution. And they are responsible for every project which is futuristic, They are also responsible for the transformation that the firm has to accomplish when technological and strategic changes engulf the entire industry. General Electric, one of the pioneers of strategic planning, led this transition from strategic planning to strategic management in the 1980s itself. And by 1990s, most firms in the industry around the world had also begun adopting strategic management as a more holistic concept compared to just strategic planning. Why should we look at strategic management as a separate discipline, and why should there be strong emphasis on strengthening strategic management? There are several reasons. We are facing certain features which are very complex and which are very unique to our times, and these features are likely to be gathering further churn in the years to come. One, we have had environmental volatility, but today we are having environmental discontinuity. For ages, we have had automobiles of one particular type, but today we are talking about automobiles which are powered not by internal combustion engines but by electric batteries. Even before the ink ran dry on the concept of electric batteries, we have got several other flexi fuel automobiles that are expected to fill the intermittent period, and also hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and who knows, there could be solar vehicles as well. So it is not just about volatility anymore. As far as environment is concerned, it is about discontinuity. Earlier, the finance was being generated nationally. Today, finance is globally available, but at the same time, financial flows are globally mandated, and it will flow to countries where there is competitiveness. Competition was local in the previous era, but today competition is global. Product life cycles used to be long, 3 to 5 years at the minimum, but today we have very short product life cycles. Automobile product updates are not mere model improvements, they are significant changes in automobile configuration each year. Organizational ecosystems were stable in the past, but today even big companies would like to function as startups. Therefore, there is greater entrepreneurship, and there is an element of entrepreneurial behavior in organizational ecosystems. Technologies by and large were incremental, but today we have many disruptive technologies, and there is leapfrogging in terms of newer components of technology getting integrated into even conventional technologies. We were having consumption economy. Every firm wanted to grow by a particular percentage, and the higher the growth level, the better was the investor support those companies. And nations also believed in growth to support employment. But today we are understanding that growth has to be balanced with planetary sustainability. So preserving planetary balance has become as important as driving consumption growth. We used to have stable skill levels, but today skill development is a continuous process. Newer ways of developing models has come about. It is no more about conventional software development. It is about machine learning, deep learning, and various other artificial intelligence driven digital technologies being deployed in the modeling of systems. Simple execution templates are being substituted by more complex and elaborate execution templates. When you think of an industry under transformation, it is not just about an execution of internal transformation. It is an execution of the entire ecosystem of the organization. That means suppliers, vendors, channel partners, material suppliers, regulators. Everyone is involved in this apart from customers themselves. So the execution template has become much wider and much more pervasive. Industrial systems until recently were very regional, but today we have global industrial systems. Therefore, the complexity and unpredictability of these external and internal factors are dictating the requirements for top managements to be much more holistic, much more 360-degree oriented, and much more comprehensive in terms of strategic management. There are three drivers for businesses which are unique and which are new. It is no longer turnover, profitability, or market capitalization that is driving the businesses in this century. What we are having today are three other drivers: globalization, innovation, and sustainability. Previously, only large companies were expected to be globally oriented, but today, every business, small or large, needs to understand and also respond to the requirements of globalization. It is no longer sufficient for any company to be a pure play domestic company. Second, innovation. Innovation is no longer considered the preserve of only a few large, well-endowed companies. Innovation is considered necessary for every type of company and every type of business because customer expectations are continuously rising for all the players. And the third one, the most important one, which I referred to earlier as well, is the sustainability factor. Consumption-led growth is no longer the only business mantra. We require a business plan, a strategic approach that would provide sustainability for the planetary resources, which means that if a particular battery is having an energy density of a particular level, we should be able to achieve the same energy density with much lower consumption of rare earths or precious materials. Or we should be able to substitute more complex mining by more simpler available materials. So ESG, environmental empathy, social responsibility, and corporate governance constitute the triad of a new business mandate. So these three anchors require the leaders to integrate under the canopy of strategic management a whole new way of driving business. And in this, strategy and technology are the twin drivers that need to work in unison as well as with synergy. We have also learned generally about triple bottom line. This phrase triple bottom line was first used by John Elkington in 1994 to suggest that companies prepare three different bottom lines in their annual report and that should reflect three higher order responsibilities. One, obviously, the traditional profit and loss account, which is the financial account. Second, the people account, that is the social responsibility of the organization. And the third is the planet account, the environmental responsibility of the organization, which is the reason why considerable attention is devoted in the MDA to human resource development. MDA is management discussion analysis, to people management and also people related developments in the annual reports of companies. The planet account is fulfilled not only through the regular annual reporting but also through special sustainability reports that are published by companies. That provides the understanding to the investors as well as to the employees, customers, in fact all the stakeholders about the environmental responsibility of the organization. Strategic management, therefore, is an appropriate framework that integrates the triple bottom line concept. One is the performance accounting, second is the people accounting, and third is the planetary resource accounting. Why is ESG important? Global ESG assets are on track to exceed $53 trillion by 2025, and that would represent more than a third of the 140.5 trillion assets under management by that year. And as you can see from this chart, the flows into sustainability funds has been growing at an exponential pace over the last 3-4 years. And this reflects that there is a philosophy that is getting ingrained that if a company is following sound principles of ESG, its financial performance will also be good. And why does India require much greater focus on ESG? We do have our own environmental issues. 17% of the world's population resides in India, but we only have 2.54% of the world land. Water stress levels are very high. We are now seeing greater flooding than necessary in certain regions and certain droughts in certain other regions. And there has been pollution in cities. And the ambient air quality in certain cities is extremely bad during certain regions. We have been experiencing that in Delhi, for example. So there are several environmental issues that are visiting the entire planet, and more importantly, India will have its fair share of these environmental issues, because we also need to step up our growth engines. We need to have more power generated, more industries located here, more employment generated here, but that will also come with certain environmental issues. So we need strategies, we need technologies to handle this. Second, social issues are very deeply ingrained in our society. We have poverty that affects nearly 18% of population, and for greater extent of population, quality of life is not adequate. We have labor law issues, there is gender discrimination, illiteracy is still a concern in India. Internet connectivity has become even a greater concern in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the inability of children and students to reach to their schools and colleges through physical means. So the gamut of social issues is also large. There are several corporate issues. We are lagging behind developed market peers in respect of certain corporate governance standards, and overseas investments flow to companies and to industries which are well governed, and firms which have high standards of corporate governance would be rewarded handsomely in terms of investment flows and also investor support. Therefore, it is important to be very much focused on corporate governance. But corporate governance is not all about attracting funds. Today's generation of youngsters is focused on joining companies which are well governed. Good corporate frameworks, good governance frameworks attract more talent and young workers. Unfortunately, as part of our growth processes, we have also seen certain fraudulent activities coming to fore in certain corporate operations. In order to stop those kinds of activities, we require both mandated as well as voluntarily adopted corporate governance standards. Therefore, the ESG concerns are very well merited, and any study of strategy, any study of management and the practice thereof must focus on ESG as an important aspect. Now, as part of this course, we have to have clarity on certain fundamental definitions. First, business. What is business? Business is the activity of developing, producing, and selling products or services to make money for those who carry out the business. Business has two dimensions: one, revenue; second, profit. Business can be carried out by a single person or a group of persons. A vendor of vegetables who comes to various homes on a daily basis, he is carrying out the business of supplying vegetables. Similarly, a housemaid who comes to the home may not be seen in that light conventionally, but she is carrying out the business of housekeeping in a home. Therefore, business can be carried out by a single person in a very normal, self-employed manner. But business is usually seen to be carried out by entities, that is, groups of persons constituting an organization, establishing a company, and running operations of a company. And different businesses are built around different aspects. They could be built around different products or services. They could be focused on different parts of a value chain, that is, materials part of the value chain, manufacturing part of the value chain, marketing part of the value chain, or all of this together. Businesses can be built around skills and competencies. When somebody does a consulting business, that person is using the skills and competencies the consultant has in terms of developing the consultancy business. Businesses can be built around different geographies, that is, you can produce certain goods but sell those goods in certain other regions. Customer focus could be one important aspect of defining and serving a business. And all of these can occur in multiple combinations. I would list some different types of businesses as examples. Automobiles, construction, pharmaceuticals, these are all well-known businesses which we see. But at the same time, certain processes which drive these industries, such as supply of materials, supply of products, distribution of products, materials, transportation, they are also businesses in their own light. Then the ones which stock these products, which retail those products, wholesaling, retailing, including kirana shops. These constitute the other types of businesses. Then we have media, advertising, promotion, etc. Ports, airports, seaports, they are infrastructural activities, but these are also businesses. Road, rail, sea, air transportation, they constitute certain businesses. Utilities, hotels, hospitality, tourism, they are different types of businesses, service businesses. And hospitals, diagnostics, education, they are socially oriented, social infrastructure businesses. And businesses can be built around a single product or many products, single business or many businesses, and the scope can gradually expand. If that is the definition of the business, what is the definition of an industry? An industry is nothing but a group of companies that conduct the same or similar businesses. It also means that the industry is characterized by same or similar products, services, and activities. When Airtel, Vodafone Idea, Reliance Jio offer telecommunication services, they together constitutes the telecommunication industry. When Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai Motor, Tata Motors, and various other passenger car manufacturers develop, produce, and market their passenger cars, it becomes together a passenger car industry. We can cite many other examples of industry. Three important factors are there. One, an industry is impacted by certain relevant and common economic factors. However, different companies in the same industry can behave and also should behave differently based on specific company strategies. Thirdly, even if the strategies are same or considered superior or inferior, companies within the same industry can post different levels of physical and financial performance based on such strategies. So there is a kind of unification structure called an industry which cohabitates several companies. The companies may follow same strategies, similar strategies, diverse strategies, but the performance more often than not is likely to be differentiated across the firms. So if you see the cascade of whatever we have seen, first we have the economy, then we have economic sectors, industries, industrial segments, individual firms. How do we do that? India has a national economy, but Indian economy comprises key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, metals and mining, infrastructure, just at a macro level. Each of these sectors has several industries. If you look at manufacturing, you have automobile industry, you have got white goods industry, you have got FMCG industry, and so on. And each industry will also have a segment. If you look at the automobile industry, you have the segment of passenger cars, you have the segment of commercial vehicles, you have the segment of two-wheelers, then tractors, and various other possibilities exist. And within each segment, you have individual firms. Therefore, similar industries constitute together an economic sector. The economy of a nation thus comprises several economic sectors and several industries in each. It is a kind of huge canopy, huge umbrella in which economic centers, industries, industrial segments, and individual firms occupy the total space and work together in unison to make the economy global economy and become globally competitive as a nation. And in this process, we will find also that certain industries are attractive, certain industries are not so attractive. That's mainly because the competitive pressures in certain industries are high and in certain industries they are low. Not only that, certain industries are marked by huge amount of technological change, which requires constant updation and change of products and therefore higher investments, whereas certain industries would have stable technological structures. Therefore, the competitiveness of industry is dependent on the underlying technology that an industry has. From a strategic perspective, how can we classify industries? Because from an economic perspective, I have classified industries. But apart from the nature of the products, services, activities, which are generally used for defining industries, we can classify industries from a strategic perspective as well. From a strategic perspective, we can classify industries as emerging industries, that is, industries which are taking shape. A genomics industry is something which is coming up in a new fashion in recent years. A semiconductor industry in India would be an emerging industry, although it has been established globally for several decades. Second, there could be growth industries. An FMCG industry is a growth industry. There could be mature industries, that is, industries where there would not be scope for rapid and high level of growth, but they are required by the society, by the community. There could be declining industries. Once upon a time, conventional telex machine industry was a declining industry. Once upon a time, the photoreal based photography industry was a declining industry. There would be industries which are very fragmented. The domestic formulation industry in the pharmaceutical space is a fragmented industry. We could have monopoly industries where there is only one player. Until very recently, Google was having a monopoly in terms of internet search. These are the types of industries which are relevant from a strategy point of view. We can have, again, 4 types of industries from a geographic aspect. There could be national industries, there could be regional industries, there could be clustered industries, either within the region or within the nation, and there could be truly global industries. So different types of industrial classifications are possible. Why are we looking at these aspects? When we look at from an economic perspective, industrial classification, when we look at the product or service perspective in industrial classification, or the nature of the industry itself in terms of its emergence, growth, stability, etc., there would be different kinds of strategic approaches that are feasible, that are required, and that can be adopted. These kinds of classifications help the strategists in the company take strategic decisions for their firms based on internal capabilities and also environmental requirements. The attractiveness of industry varies in each of these industries, and there again there is no ready hypothesis. We can't conclude that every emerging industry entails losses in the beginning, nor can we conclude that just because it's an emerging industry there will be new technology, therefore there would be customers lapping up those products or services. There are no preset rules in the industrial classifications. We should also be very clear that this industrial classification does not stay still. Industries can move from one classification to other. That is, emerging industries can become growth industries, but if the technology is poor, they can become fragmented industries or declining industries as well. And from growth industries, one can move into a mature industry setup, or suddenly when a disruptive technology strikes, they can become declining industries as well. So strategic planning has to look at the industrial classifications in this process. I want to illustrate the different industries I have outlined in terms of specific industrial examples. What are emerging industries? Industries that deal with biotechnology, genetics, regeneration, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, mixed reality, comprising virtual reality, etc. Robotics, autonomy, these are all emerging industries. What are growth industries? Information technology, pharmaceuticals, consumer electronics, renewables, these are growth industries. Hotels, hospitality, retail, movies, automobiles, oil and gas represent the mature industries. Declining industries are printers, copiers, land phones, cable programming, tobacco. Monopoly industries, rare earth extraction, mRNA vaccines, search, chips, these are monopoly industries by and large. Cyclical industries which go up and down in terms of the demand patterns, steel, commodities, sugar, agricultural products. What are national industries? Railways, road transportation, utilities, airports, seaports. Whereas products and services can be portable across geographies, these national industries are national geographically and in terms of their characteristic association. They cannot be shifted out. They exist for the nation and within nations. Then we have regional industries, iron and other ores, steel and engineering. There are also certain industries which are clustered around certain competencies. Many of the emerging industries, as also certain mature industries, are clustered industries automobiles, aerospace, chemicals. These are all clustered around certain industrial and competency clusters. Similarly, the newer areas such as artificial intelligence and mixed reality, these are all clustered around certain high competency cities and towns. And certain industries are global: consumer goods, financials, perfumes, consumer electronics, automobiles. They are pan global. There are no standard sets of rules which are applicable to the industries. Each industry has its own structural drivers. The strategic attractiveness of industries varies with time. Now, what is our central inquiry as strategists? The central inquiry of strategy is the industry in which the firm should compete in. If you are an entrepreneur, first of all, you should make up your mind on the industry in which you would compete in. Should I be in pharmaceutical industry? Should I be in electric two-wheeler industry? Should I be in construction industry? Therefore, the central point of inquiry for any strategist relates to the industry in which the firm should compete in. Even if a firm is established, this definition of industry comes to the strategist time and again. Whether the industry is narrow or broad signifies the way you define the industry. Let's look at this example, the 4 concentric circles. We can define our industry as a commercial vehicle industry, that means trucks and buses. Or we can say that my industry is not merely supply of vehicles but also transportation. Therefore, the entire industry could be looked at as road transport industry. But road transport is nothing but one aspect of the overall transport industry. But what is transportation? It is mobility of goods and mobility of services. So the same industry can be looked at from 4 different angles: the commercial vehicle industry angle, the road transport industry angle, the transport industry angle, and the mobility industry angle. So a manufacturer of trucks and buses may see itself as being part of the commercial vehicle industry, and that has been the traditional view of itself. But today the manufacturer may also see itself as a player in the larger road transport industry, the overall transport industry, or in the ultimate sense, the mobility industry. In a way, it's also happening when companies supply electric buses to state transport undertakings. They are not just supplying vehicles, they are also providing this as a service, that is mobility as a service. Just as software as a service is being provided, mobility as a service is also being provided by vehicle manufacturers. So this is the transformation of the definition of the industry. But the way the firm chooses to define its industry leads the firm to think of many strategic options on products and services and the way of conducting the business and the infrastructure that is required to support the business definition or the industry definition that has been adopted. Now, why would anybody choose any particular industry? Anybody would like to enter an industry because of the attractiveness of the industry. When we talk about the attractiveness of industry, it is not just the ease of competition or the ease of earning revenues, but it's also ease of earning profits. So the more revenues you are able to generate, the more profits you are able to generate, the more sustainability you have in the business, that industry would be seen as being the more attractive business. So there are certain industry factors that influence industry attractiveness, and there are certain company factors that influence the industry attractiveness. In terms of the industry factors, market size and growth rate. It is of one level if the passenger car demand is 1 million units, but it is entirely different frame of reference if the market for passenger cars is 1 billion. So the market size and the growth rate, they are very important drivers of industry attractiveness. Second, pricing potential. That is, whether these products are catering to those segments of the market where there is pricing power in the hands of the company. Third, the number of competitors. If competitors do not wish to enter the industry because the technology is very proprietary or somebody else has already come into the market and occupied the central space, then the number of competitors could be small, in which case the industry would be an attractive industry. Entry barriers, that is, if an industry has high entry barriers, that is, it is easy to come in, let's say 10 years earlier into an industry particularly steel making. But if you want to come into steel industry now, the costs of developing a steel plant are humongous. So it is an entry barrier for newcomers. At the same time, the market is not as big as and as profitable as it was, let's say, 10 years earlier. So the entry barriers exist for such industries. Then there are also exit barriers. That is, the facilities you have, the products you have cannot be easily acquired by somebody else. Therefore, if you are in one type of industry, it is not possible for you to exit. And that's one of the reasons why if somebody gets into an airliner industry or telecommunication industry or automobile industry, it's not so easy to exit. People need to make the best out of the bargain they have in terms of the industry structure and firm's competitiveness. Mobility barriers. If you have certain difficulties in one segment of the industry, if you are able to move to another segment of the industry, that is, the mobility barriers are low to move from one segment to another segment, then the industry will be attractive. But on the other hand, if you are a two-wheeler manufacturer and you cannot manufacture a four-wheeler, then you have a mobility barrier there. Or similarly, if you are a thermal power producer and you cannot go into hydropower, then there is a mobility barrier. So those industries which have low mobility barriers are generally more attractive. But these things can work in a different way also. If you are mobile, somebody else, particularly the competitor, can also be mobile. So you could face greater competition. The other industry factor is technological obsolescence. If technology doesn't get obsolete quickly and the same level of technology can support 2 years or 3 years of product service, which means that the existing facilities can be better utilized. The costs will be coming down, the profits will be better. Availability of inputs. Similarly, availability of distribution and sales channels, the availability of people skills, they are all resource competencies which are available within an industry, and these could influence the industry attractiveness. From a company perspective, the factors that make an industry attractive are the following. If your product lineup is very good, you can enter the industry and make a mark for yourself, then product lineup is one foremost aspect of company factors that would drive industry attractiveness for the company. Second, cost structure. That is, you have a low cost structure, you are going to be a winner. The industry will be attractive for you. And the cost structure could be attractive. Let's say you are a supplier of materials already and you have got good control over the cost of materials. Then to convert them into components could be cost competitive, and therefore you could have a good cost structure, and that industry could be attractive for you. Third, competitive advantage. We will talk about competitive advantage in greater detail, but competitive advantage is a combination of several factors which provides certain unique advantages in the marketplace to the company. And if your company has got that combination, then you are likely to be more competitive. Therefore, you are likely to have better market share and profit share. Other company factors, economies of scale and scope. That is, you are already a dominant player. You have got a huge capacity which will reduce the cost of production. You have got ability to produce different types of products or offer different types of services with the infrastructure that you already have. Then you have better economies of scale and scope. Product market segmentation, your ability to develop products, multiple products in fact, for markets, multiple market segments in fact. So the product market segmentation is one of the important company factors that would drive industry attractiveness. Product life cycle characteristics, the way the product life cycle moves, how elongated it is in terms of the time span. Level of technological innovation. If you have technological innovation in-house and that provides you a technological edge, that industry will be attractive for you. On the other hand, you are not as a company technologically innovative, but the competitors in that industry are technologically innovative. That industry is not attractive because that is not matching with your strengths, and your weaknesses are deterring you. Access to suppliers. Certain companies have got certain preferred access to suppliers, and that industry would provide greater attractiveness. Same with reference to distribution and sales channels. That is, the hold you have on the ecosystem within the industry helps determine the attractiveness of the industry. And finally, people competencies. If you have top class talent which can develop different types of products required by the industry in the way the customers want, definitely that industry will be attractive to you. A holistic framework that encompasses all these industry factors and the company factors and drives the convergence of all these factors into one single phrase called competitive advantage is the theory of competitive advantage. This is a holistic framework that has been proposed by Professor Michael Porter of Harvard, and that describes the way you read the industry, the way you read your own firm's capabilities, and create appropriate generic strategies and ensure that these strategies are executed in an optimal fashion. We have now talked about several definitional aspects of strategic management: the industry definition, the economy definition, the business definition, and how different types of interlinkages exist. Now let's talk about certain crucial and important frameworks for analyzing strategic implications in an industry. The first is the PESTLE analysis. It can also be called PESTLE analysis. This is an acronym for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. A firm's external environment can be defined in terms of these 6 factors. We face a political environment. We are subject to an economic environment. We operate within a society. We serve a society. We use technology, but the technology itself is an environmental factor. We are subject to the legal requirements in a particular jurisdiction wherein we operate, and the overall environmental factors related to the planetary resources, the pollution levels, the seasonal factors, and the global expectations on environment. These are all together constituting the environment factors. So PESTLE is an analytical tool that tries to capture the impact of each of these factors and all these factors collectively on the industry. It depends on the nature of the industry itself, where the firm is headquartered, from where the firm receives its dominant turnover. A firm may be headquartered in the United States, but the dominant turnover could come from China. Then PESTLE impact will be completely different compared to a firm which is both headquartered and dominant in China. Similarly, the overall global national conditions and interrelationships, they also determine the external analysis that is required for a company. The importance of PESTLE analysis is that we figure out for ourselves where our industry stands in the overall economic canvas that is fast evolving these days, and that economic environment comprises all these factors which we have discussed. And it is not a simple analysis. You can see the number of factors that are there under each vertical. Within political factor set, we have government ideologies, government policies, party ideologies, federal state systems, the nature of the democratic structures, constitutional process, institutional strengths, global relationships. And when we come to the economic factors, it is not just the policies, the level of national income, tax policies, public investments, regulatory frameworks, interest rates, trade balance, foreign exchange rates. If the government policies change on cryptocurrency, would it not be a very important economic factor which is relevant for a company which is trying to do work in the digital financial economy space? Certainly it would be. So the economic factors need to be looked at from different angles. The social aspects, demographics, income levels, urban-rural mix, literacy levels, development index, safety net that is available for seniors, and also people without employment, labor economics, social mores. These are all social factors. And in terms of technological factors, which we will consider separately, of course, but to quote a few, the innovation level, the technical manpower, patents that we can generate, the R&D spend, the R&D infrastructure, basic research capability, that is fundamental research that we are able to do, entrepreneurship in technology and licenses. These constitutes the technical factor sets. Under legal, we have laws and regulations, regulatory agencies, enforcement agencies, judicial structures, legal process, how easy to access courts, and how time effective it is to get a court case decided, international laws, appeals. These are all legal aspects. We have seen matters of retrospective amendments being challenged and being awarded, and the years taken for getting these things addressed, redressed, whatever it is. Sometimes the governments are right, sometimes the companies are right, but both governments and companies must understand that PESTLE factors are very important drivers of economic growth as well as corporate growth. Then we have environmental factors related to the natural resources that countries have, people resources, natural habitats, water sufficiency, green cover, climate change, health and safety, calamities and pandemics. So the spectrum of factors that are involved in the PESTLE factors are many. And as each has several constituent elements and each element itself has got several further constituent elements, it is a really complex job to understand the PESTLE impact on a firm's strategy. National income is not just national income, it is also inclusive of several other factors like fiscal deficit, the current account deficit, the inflation level, money in circulation, and so on. And these are all never static, these are always moving factors. And different industries have different PESTLE factors. I have tried to classify 10 industries in terms of the impact in terms of political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental activities. In respect of FMCG, that is fast moving consumer goods, the impact of political factors is rather low. Whether the political system is democratic or authoritarian, FMCG demand is bound to be there. Similarly, whether the economy is booming or not so booming, the demand for daily essentials, staples, and certain categories of discretionary goods will be good. Social mores have a medium impact. Technological aspects have a medium impact because FMCG goods are not subject to dramatic changes in technology. Legal aspects are few and far between. Environmental concerns are in medium sector, because if you think of mineral drinking water as one of the FMCG products, you will find that there are environmental concerns related to that. Similarly, in terms of packaging of FMCG goods, there are environmental concerns. So there is an environmental concern related to FMCG industry, which is of medium order. If you look at the energy industry, there is a medium impact in terms of political characteristics, very high economic impact. Socially is energy availability, energy sustainability is very important. Technological requirements are very high in energy sector. There are legal issues related to energy supplies, contracts. There was a particular state government which entered into certain energy contracts. Another state government which came subsequently found that the energy costs were higher and it didn't really capture the likely downsides in the energy costs. Therefore, there are legal issues related to that. Therefore, contract drawing up is important and people tend to be very careful about the legal issues. So, medium impact. Environmental, certainly very high impact in respect of energy industry, because this is one of the key contributors to environmental pollution, even as it is extremely important for the national growth. Automobiles, similarly, different aspects of medium political, high economic, medium social, high technological, high legal, and high environmental. Infrastructure, it has even more highs because it is a very important policy tool to stimulate the economy, to generate employment, and also demonstrate the relevance of the country as a global hub for manufacture and also for marketing. So infrastructure is extremely important. Therefore, there is great interface of political aspects of PESTLE with infrastructure. Economically, very important. Social impact is medium because countries such as India learn to live with not so great infrastructure, but the society is waking up to the need for such infrastructure. The medium impact is that. Technologically, high requirement because of the way in which infrastructure can be built from cement consumption to the material consumption. The technological factors are very important. Modern construction technology can modify the cost structure and the investment intensity of infrastructure projects. Legally, one of the most difficult areas to set up infrastructure projects. And finally, the environmental effect. In terms of white goods, it somewhat mirrors the FMCG industry, but the economic demographic impact on white goods industry is very high. Similarly, the social awareness and the social aspiration also has very high impact on the white goods industry. Otherwise, it is more or less medium, low, like the FMCG industry. In respect of real estate industry, there is a lot of impact of political approach on real estate, both in terms of affordable as well as luxury housing and the development of office spaces. There is a political will that stimulates the real estate economy. The economic impact or connectivity is medium, social connectivity is medium. Technologically, real estate hasn't seen great strides as other product groups see, but there is therefore some level of technology which is on the lower side. Legally, again, another sector which is having a lot of legal ramifications, and the environmental impact is also medium. And it becomes high, particularly when real estate projects are set up, displacing the agricultural lands and other developmental habitats. Pharma and healthcare. Politically, it is a favored sector, but not necessarily economically favored. It is allowed to fend for itself by and large. Socially, importance is very high. COVID-19 times have proved how important pharma and healthcare are for social stability and for healthcare sustainability. Technologically, innovation is the game in pharma and healthcare. We have to innovate and develop new products, deliver them at high quality. So technological factors are very impressive on pharma and healthcare. Legal aspects are fewer, except in areas such as clinical trials. And the environmental impact is high because most of the pharmaceutical operations are chemical based, and even healthcare operations generate a lot of biomedical waste which needs to be disposed of in an environmentally safe and friendly manner. So the environmental factors are extremely important for pharma and healthcare. Then we have hotels and hospitality, where the political influence are low. You are encouraged to establish more hotels and provide greater hospitality. If an economy booms, hotels and hospitality would take off. But if economy has lockdowns or delayed growth, then these sectors will be beset with problems. We have seen that again in COVID times. Socially, these are important markers of social development. Technologically, not much changes. Legally, the impact is low, but environmentally, hotels and hospitality have got a great relationship, because destinations of tourism have to be preserved in their pristine purity. Hotels have to ensure high level of environmental compliance, safety, patient, customer safety, guest safety, etc. Media, high level of interaction with political factors. Academic factors, medium. Social factors, very high. That is, social trends influence media and media reporting influences society. The interconnectivity is very high. Technologically, yes, digital media has revolutionized media, but then the level of technology and its impact is probably not the same as what we find in certain other sectors such as energy and automobiles. Then we have legal issues which could be very important and in certain cases very challenging for the media firms. And environmental impact is also very high, because media has to focus its attention on the environmental factors as well. Banking, politically, banking is an extremely sensitive area, but it has been diversified. Public sector banking, private sector banking, shadow banking, digital payment banking, and various other sectors have come. The sector itself has matured substantially. Therefore, the political connectivity has reduced, but the economic connectivity is very high. Banking is one of the crucial sectors of the economy, and it is really the backbone of industrial activity. A key driver. Social impact is very high, BFSI in total, banking, financial services, and insurance in total, has got great social ramifications, and society earns for a very stable and assuring banking and financial services sector. Technologically, medium, yes, digital technologies are transforming the banking sector, but not exactly in the same level of attention as automobiles or infrastructure. Legally, medium segment, and environmentally also medium. So these industry classifications have got relationship with PESTLE factors in unique way in each of these cells. So these rating scales can further granulated depending upon the subsection of the industry, and also fine tuning on the PESTLE factors in greater light. For banking, the policy parameters, economic policy parameters are extremely important. The repo rates, the money in circulation, policies towards digital payments, payment gateways, who should own banks, what could be the ownership percentages. These political and economic statements and policies have got great impact on banking. So therefore, PESTLE analysis is not just one framework, or it is not just one expertise. It is a combination of capabilities to understand how industries and the environment in its 6 dimensions interact with each other. What is the benefit of PESTLE analysis? It actually has several important benefits for a firm that practices this strategic tool. One, it promotes externally oriented strategic thinking. It is not a cocoon strategic planning you do. You do a strategic plan that recognizes and responds to likely environmental developments. It enables the firms to align the strategic plan to the environment. It makes the firm well prepared to meet the environmental volatility. When you do a PESTLE analysis, you do it with openness. For example, when you look at the impact of political and economic policies on the tech education sector, you may think of what happened in China and may conclude in 2 ways. This drives investments away from the Chinese tech education sector, that is digital education sector, and bring those investments into India. That is one positive way. The other way is that there could be in future some approach which says that while you offer courses at a premium pricing, you should also offer certain courses for the masses free of charge. There could be some social responsibility added, which could change the business models for firms. So PESTLE analysis, which is externally oriented, will help each and every firm in each and every industry to be prepared for environmental changes that could occur. And it also enables the firms to seek appropriate positions with the governments. When I say appropriate positions, what I mean is not lobbying. What I mean is an articulation of how the firm can benefit the industry and how the firm can benefit the economy. And that articulation is extremely important. That is, if some firms are today going to conduct a PESTLE analysis of semiconductor manufacture and find that these are the important factors that need to be supported by government, and they articulate that with the government as a resultant of the PESTLE analysis, that will be mutually beneficial to the economy as well as for the firm. So in summation, PESTLE analysis spots the business opportunities, identifies the business risks, establishes the linkage between the firm and the environment, and also makes executives environmentally sensitive. And the time that is spent on PESTLE analysis by firms has to be balanced and calibrated, because we can't have a strategic planning process wherein PESTLE analysis takes place for half the time. We should have PESTLE analysis, but it should be done in quick time, and probably it could be running in the background. The PESTLE factors, as they change in their dynamics, could be fed into the strategic planning process or even in the strategic execution process. But PESTLE analysis must be done. It must be done in good time, and it must be carried out in sufficient depth. That is important. Technology, which is one of the important aspects of our course, it is actually a bridging factor of PESTLE analysis. It bridges what is politically acceptable, economically competitive, socially relevant, legally correct, and environmentally empathetic into one technology business solution. By deploying the right technology with the right strategy, we'll be able to generate politically acceptable solutions for the marketplace. We'll make ourselves economically competitive. Our products and services will be socially relevant. We will be full of correctness and rectitude in our legal behavior, and we will be empathetic towards the environment. Some of the examples: if you develop zero emission electric vehicles, if you generate our energy solely through renewable sources, if we use artificial intelligence to solve our healthcare and other social problems, we are deploying technology to drive solutions which respond to the PESTLE factors which India has. Therefore, successful PESTLE analysis is the foundation for developing a good technology strategy, and that is a good tool for meaningful customer fulfillment as well. So with this we conclude week 1 lecture 1, and I hope to meet you again with week 1 lecture 2, which will focus on another theme and another topic. Thank you.